Okay, so it's the early hours of the morning, and I want to talk about the issue of immigration. But before I get to that, there's been breaking news tonight, and that is that the Canadian singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen has died at 82. This really has been quite a year for celebrity deaths, coming on top of David Bowie and Prince. I'm just thinking of the singers, of course, there's been many others. It really has been quite a year for prominent people passing away. Um, I didn't know Leonard Cohen very well. I didn't know of his work very well, but I came across his song "Waiting for the Miracle" via Natural Born Killers, which is a film I only saw in the last 2 years, and I think it's a beautiful piece of music. So that is sad news that he's passed away at 82. He was one of the most influential singer-songwriters ever, really, and that would be big news. Um, Okay, so I want to talk about this issue of immigration, especially on the US Mexican border. Um, I mentioned about all the anti Trump protests sweeping America right now, and obviously there's been protests before, especially over this wall that Trump has threatened to build. I personally think it's rhetoric. I don't think that wall is going to be built, or at least I think if Trump tries to do it, he's going to go up against stumbling blocks, probably from his own side, even though the Republicans now control both the House and Senate. I think he's going to go up against stumbling blocks. I can't see that happening. Um, Nevertheless, it goes without saying that relations between Washington, D.C. and Mexico City will be tense. Certainly, at least in the first few months of the Trump presidency, given Mr. Trump's rhetoric. Um, and Mexican presidents, from Calderon to Fox to Peña Nieto, have been very vocal in what they think of Mr. Trump, especially Fox and Calderon. But I've just come across an article in The Guardian which really shows another perspective to this, and that is Mexican hypocrisy, and I can't think of any other word for it. The general view from Mexico and from Mexicans, and this is a generalization, it doesn't apply to everyone, but the general perspective is Trump is a terrible racist and he's picking on Mexico and it's all terrible and we're frightened about what's going to happen. Now, I certainly understand those sentiments because if people have been living in the US for years and they're worried about the family breaking up, that's obviously something that um, people will be concerned about. And I don't know enough about the actual situation to comment in great detail about the system the way it is. I do believe, though, that if you break the law of a country knowingly, there has to be some responsibility in that. And I just find it difficult when people are saying, like, when people are implying that they're victims but they won't take any responsibility. I do feel sorry for children of migrant parents who have broken the law. But the point about this is that, America's the land of opportunity. It's a country built by immigrants. So I get that. But the point is, there are millions of people who go through the legal route. Now, Trump may be guilty of scaremongering. Apparently, illegal immigration is actually at a historic low. But nevertheless, people, I mean, I've got CNN on mute. They're just covering anti Trump protests now. Um, I really don't see what's so controversial about saying go down the legal path. It seems simple to me. Don't break the law. If you go to another country and you break the law, I mean, there's going to be consequences, and that's true of everywhere in the world, from liberal Sweden to authoritarian China. That's true of every single country in the world. If you break the law, there are consequences. So why should the US be expected to be any different? It's something I just don't get about this whole debate, and maybe I'm missing something. I'm not heartless. I've seen the images of families tearfully meeting after years. I don't want to give the impression that I'm completely callous here because I don't know everything, and I know that there are many um, people who are the sons and daughters of migrants who are good people. They're not criminals, They want to contribute to American society. In some cases, they've bled for America. So, Trump's rhetoric was irresponsible. But when we're talking about immigration, I do see hypocrisy from Mexico. And I'm going to read out a report from the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is by no means pro-Trump. Guardian is well known, in fact, for being very left-wing. This is from the Guardian from April this year. Just bear with me while I read this out. And it is documenting the story of some migrants within Mexico. This is very interesting. Amy and Esther Juarez were edgy with excitement as they boarded the bus full of seasonal workers heading for a farm at the other end of Mexico from their home in the poverty-stricken southern state of Chiapas. Although their brother Alberto, 18, had made the same journey the previous year, it was the first time Amy, 24, and Esther, 15, had left the tiny indigenous community where they had grown up. But about halfway there, immigration agents boarded the bus and, after checking all the passengers' papers, ordered the three siblings to get off. The officials accused them of carrying false documents and lying about their nationality. Then they told the youngsters that they would have to be deported to Guatemala, a country none of them had been able to place on a map. The baffled youngsters, who speak the Mayan language, I think that's Slettal. Apologies, I can't pronounce that properly. But very little Spanish, were transferred to an immigration holding center in Querétaro City. Alberto, 18, was taken into a separate room by four agents who told him that unless he signed documents admitting he was Guatemalan, he would die there. He would die there. One pushed me, another was kicking me in my leg, and a third, who was very fat, gave me an electric shock here on the back of my right hand, Alberto told the Guardian through a translator. Um, it's quite a long report, I'll try and put a link to it. But that's pretty disgraceful. Now, that is the treatment of indigenous Mayan people within Mexico. You can imagine if Mexican migrants were tortured by, say, Arizona state troopers, the outcry that would follow. Um, so, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is astonishingly hypocritical. Mexico's very dubious human rights record, um, coupled with its hardline approach to immigration from the south, in my line of thinking, really put it in a position where it cannot lecture the US and pontificate about being holier than thou. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy here. And for Mexicans of European descent, again, I wouldn't be so kind of holier than thou from Trump supporting Americans. Because, you know, just because there's been so much focus on Trump shouldn't turn away the spotlight from Mexico's own record. And this needs to be talked about. This report was made in April. Bear in mind it's the Guardian. It's not some sort of neocon newspaper. It's a Guardian, a left-wing British newspaper that is hardly pro-Trump. So let me know what you think. I personally have long had suspicions that Mexico is very hypocritical in this. So all I would say is, if you're going to criticize Trump for being racist and for his hardline immigration policy, then be consistent and also criticize Mexico for its hardline immigration policy. Um, Mexico may not have got a reputation as a land of opportunity, but I see a lot of opportunism and hypocrisy from Mexican presidents. I think they're trying to get domestic approval by attacking Trump, and that's a bit pathetic, really. But this also applies to some Mexican Americans who are pontificating on this. If they want to be consistent, they should also be criticizing the Mexican government, given that things like this are happening. So, yeah, hypocrisy at its finest.